We start in the Alfred Locks on a summer's evening, working our way out into the river with the Egremont, and possibly it's the Liso and the Royal Daffodil. Woodside Ferry. The Daffodil or the Liso or Egremont. That's the Daffodil. A fishing boat on our way down into the Bay of Biscay, tidying up after the dockers. The Bay of Biscay. Some fine weather off the Spanish coast, a promise of things to come. Doing some maintenance work on the derricks and their blocks. Lifting the derrick to grease the heel. The black flashes that you can see, unfortunately, is the fault that was with the camera that nobody was able to fix. Sending down the block for servicing. This is a deck cargo of pigs we were taking to Shanghai. They were a pedigree breed. A nice sunset. An American supply ship and a deep sea tug. Two first trippers who were feeling very seasick. The catering department. And the necessary bucket. The galley boy pays a visit and doesn't like the smell. The steward's toilet with the entrance door and the shower on the right. The heater. The 3 sinks. And the all-important Dobie sink. And a washing machine. We'd never seen one of these before. We press on down towards Gibraltar. Another American supply ship. Gibraltar itself, which is the lighter coloured part. As we used to say, turning the corner. A closer view. This is the Granada Mountains in southern Spain, where you get round into the Mediterranean. The white is snow on the top. This will be the last land we see for a few days. Coming into the anchorage for Port Said, and another blue funnel ship comes in. It's either an A or a D boat. We see her later on when we leave the canal in the Red Sea. Port officials come alongside. The mooring boat comes on board for when we have to moor up in the canal. Or should I say, if we have to moor up in the canal. De Lesseps Monument, or the remains of it. The Frenchmen have built the Suez Canal. And here comes the most important man of all, the agent with the mail. We continue our way into Port Said. This large building was the headquarters of the Suez Canal Company. Lying on the buoys, waiting to go through the canal. Actually in the canal. This is one of the local farms. There's the farmer's house. One of the many pilot stations on the canal. A midshipman has a quick 40 winks on the boat deck. This is the desert on the other side of the canal. If you went into the far distance, you would eventually reach Israel and Iraq. The galley boy preparing some veg. storeroom entrance, the ship's stove, complete with ladles on the end, and the stockpot. The second steward asks the assistant cook and galley boy if they want a sub. Chief cook, Jerry Carroll, the entrance to the storerooms. Deckhand gets his lunch. Macaroni fritters for anybody. Pantryman and 2 assistant stewards and the galley boy. This is the blue funnel ship we saw coming into the anchorage at Port Said. She was ahead of us in the convoy, but being about a knot slower than us, we overtook her after we left the canal. I don't know of any other cine shots of a blue funnel ship in full cry, so this possibly is quite rare. Sunbathing on the Chinese deckhouse down on the poop. 2 assistant stewards doing the same. An oil rig in the Red Sea. Some of the crew teaching the passengers' children how to play hopscotch. A tanker going up the Red Sea. We've now visited Aden and refueled, and we're going across the top of the Indian Ocean towards Ceylon, India. It's the monsoon season. These large crates on the deck are the pig pens for the pedigree pigs going to Shanghai. This is a view of the top of the main engine. There's pistons going up and down. There's a better view later on. Some ancillary equipment on the side of the crankcase, driven by a small shaft. The engineer on duty writing up the logbook. General view at the side of the crankcase at the starting platform. The propeller shaft, one of the bearings, and where it goes out through the stern of the ship. The main switchboard for the generators. Cylinder heads or pistons on the main engine again, going up and down. the engineer on duty. This was shot on another ship from the first part, so it's in black and white. The propeller shaft again, if my memory serves me right, turning at 113 revolutions per minute. Down below, the main engine room, looking along the engine. Writing up the board on the side of the crankcase. Main switchboard again. Circuit breakers. Ancillary shaft on the main engine. And this is the best view I've got of the main engine working. Unfortunately, the light in there was not very bright, and even with the highest speed film I could get, this was the best I could do. Coming into Keppel Harbour, Singapore. And off ashore in the taxi. Some of the flats in Singapore. Alongside the wharf in Keppel Harbour. This is the Melampus. The Atreus. We're now leaving Keppel Harbour, we're on our way out. And she dips her ensign to us. Her officers on deck looking at us. A Russian cargo ship, something of a rarity in those days. The centre dips their ensign to us. We drop the pilot. And carry on through the Narrows at the top end of Keppel Harbour. Winding up the gangway. How many thousands of turns of the handle did that take? Myself on the afterwell deck filming. RAF rescue launch. A Royal Royal Navy Loch-class frigate on anti-piracy patrol. An old Second World War sandboat. Tidying up again after the dockers. Wash down. Some of the deck officers and engineers indulging in a bit of photography. The square box on the rail is for cigarette ends. One of the deckhands sunbathing on a hatch. Somebody growing some plant in an old biscuit box. Relaxing on deck, reading a book. Imagine doing this today, the health and safety would have a fit. Our approach to Hong Kong. Putting the pilot ladder down. Piece of deck cargo on the after well deck. Coming up for Lai Mun Gap. Hong Kong Island. Coming into the harbour at Hong Kong. This is the island. You can't see the peak because it was covered in cloud. Alongside A.Holt's wharf, offloading cargo. First porthole was my cabin. On the Star Ferry going over from Kowloon to Hong Kong Island. Ships tied to the buoys in the harbour, including on the left a blue funnel ship. The ferry terminal on Hong Kong Island. And here we get into a taxi to go to the Peak tramway. The entrance to the Peak tramway terminus. One of the cable cars. In between the rails you can see the cable which is pulling us up towards the top of the peak. These bridges are roads that run across every so often there's a station which we stopped at, passing a descending car, one board driver, this is a view of the harbour. In the distance, the new territories. The white building down below there is Holt's Wharf. That's Kowloon. And ships moored to the buoys. Getting back onto the cable car to go down to Hong Kong again. And down we go. The chain in the picture was the emergency brake. One of the stations. View of Hong Kong. Holt's Wharf at night. Kowloon, Nathan Road, and the night lights. A view of the lights on Hong Kong Island. A fire in a squatter's town on Hong Kong Island. Where the fire had been the next day. Another squatter's town. "58 squatters' huts destroyed by fire," says the caption to the picture. View of Hong Kong. Star ferry with a Royal Navy aircraft carrier behind it. A water launch which is on hire to the Blue Funnel Line for transporting the crews to and from the moored ships. Blue Peter signifying we're about to sail. An old tramp comes in. A last view at Holt's Wharf. And the Peninsula Hotel. The agent's launch. We're out to sea again, heading for Bangkok. Looking straight down at the bow as it cuts through the water. Painting the forecastle head. The platform at the back was where the lookouts used to stand of a night. The boatswain and the first mate discussing the work going on deck. Suging down. And here we have a flying fish that had come on board during the night. It's dead. And the galley boy picks it up so you can have a proper look at it. And the large fins that it uses to fly with. The carpenter joins in to make sure you get a good view. And then carried on repairing the hatch. The saloon steward cleaning the saloon windows. The second steward, myself, having just finished scrubbing out the galley. Trevor and assistant steward in the saloon. Myself cleaning the cabin out, the carpet getting a good shake. And an oily rag from the carpenter. Recreation time. In the saloon, in the steward's recreation room, 2 deckhands and 3 of the stewards play cards, crib, with several cans of the necessary lubricant. And this can be interpreted quite simply as, go away with those big floodlights because I'm getting fed up. Our one and only entertainment in the mess room, recreation room, was this record player. In rough weather we could not use it. Another pastime was reading a book in your cabin. This is the chief steward with his back towards us, with the chief cook on the right with the glasses on, and the carpenter playing cards in the chief steward's cabin. Jackie Graham, chief steward. Jerry Carroll, Chief Cook. Myself making a model of the ship. I was fortunate I had a cabin of my own, being the second cook and baker. The deck crowd doing some cleaning up and tidying. Saloon steward in the saloon checking the silver. Second steward going down aft to the lazarette. And we now arrive in Bangkok. Going upriver we pass an element boat going down. Engineer comes out to the engine room for a breather. These girls would sit alongside the ship all day, waiting for us to throw bits of timber and anything else over the side, which they then would collect. A water taxi. And the sister steward in the main passageway by the saloon. Some of the cargo going ashore. The box says protect from rain, so it sits on the quayside in the pouring rain. Some of the activity on the dockside. Customs men. The little taxis that used to flee round the place. The galley boy watching the activities on the dockside. The girls waiting for something to be thrown into the water. So we gave them some Lifebuoy soap, which we had a large quantity of. The lady says thank you. The view from the boat deck over the top of the go-downs. Another lady says thank you for her Lifebuoy soap. Chart room, wheelhouse. Inside the wheelhouse, the midshipmen were drying off the signal flags. The ship's wheel. We're now leaving Bangkok and heading down the river again. Dredger, one of the many villages on the side of the river. The deck crowd tidying up after the dockers, having just come off standby. Water taxi again. An isolated house built into the side of the jungle. As far as I could see, there was nobody anywhere near it. Back out into the China Sea again. This time we're heading for Japan. The 3 portholes are the ship's hospital, and the paint has been chipped off, ready for giving a fresh coat. A tropical sunset. Splicing a lifeline on the after well deck. This used to stretch from the main superstructure down aft to the Chinese accommodation, and in the event of a wave coming on board while you were walking along the deck, you held onto this wire to stop yourself being swept away. Serving the splice. Midshipman Sujin down the superstructure, the upper decks. More splicing on the after well deck. An oil tanker passes us. View of the ship from the forecastle head. A flying fish. And onward, ever onwards. Chipping and painting. One of the officers sunbathing on top of the wheelhouse. Sunbathing while reading a book on the afterwell deck, 2 assistant stewards, and the third one sits on the side. Ginger, assistant steward. An American Navy warship. Another tropical sunset. And a rare sight today, the red duster. Coming into some islands lying off Yokohama. We're now in Yokohama, and this is a tourist bus that went round the docks showing the people the various foreign ships. Fourth officer. Japanese cargo barge. The water girl, who used to go from hatch to hatch giving the dockers drinks of water in these pails, taking a rest. Getting some of the cargo out of the hatch. Remember when they used to do this, they dragged it out, the racket that it used to make. A Japanese customs man. The pigs for Shanghai. I'm back out to sea again. Poor old deck crowd tidying up yet again and doing maintenance on top of the Samson post. Another pastime when we were lying at anchor was fishing, though I must admit the success rate in this method at least was very poor. More cleaning and painting. Chipping a piece of the deck. Another pastime where we could do it was swimming. With or without swimming trunks on. Joe, the chief cook. Cebu in the Philippines. A view from the lifeboat deck. Local children swimming in the dock. There was water snakes in the water here, but it didn't seem to bother the children or the snakes. The local children going to school on buffaloes, so I was told by one of the dockers. A local fishing boat. The captain's tiger goes ashore in the afternoon for some photography, and I went with him. Local children climbing our anchor chain to dive off into the water. The main area of Cebu. A jeepney. These were their equivalent of a bus. One of the many wrecks lying around. A young lady passes us by. A local newspaper boy. And another young lady. Somebody drying their washing. Some goats who were just wandering around. This is towards the outskirts of the town. The main shopping area. This was a large church in the centre of Cebu. It had some significance, but we weren't sure quite what. Unfortunately, the camera was also pretty faulty at this point. This is a view of some water spouts. It's not very clear, but there are at least 3 in view here. That's one of them. We were giving them all a wide berth. Assistant cook and 2 assistant stewards on the afterwell deck having a conversation. Some of the passengers. More tidying up and cleaning. Maintenance on the top of the main mast. Foremast corrected. The top of the jumbo derrick. Jerry, the chief cook, reading the paper, and he's saying, "Will you go away with that camera?" The assistant steward getting ready to scrub his cabin mat. The ship's carpenter carrying out some maintenance. More painting. Number 1 from the engine room. Taffy coils down a rope. Working 50 or 60 foot up on the mast. No safety lines. Galley boy peeling potatoes. And so we come back to the Mersey. This is the Melampus waiting to lock through into Gladstone Dock. The film was taken by my late mother. I left her with a cine camera ready loaded before I sailed, with the instructions for her to come down to the dock and film us coming in. In the lock, myself, desperately looking for Mr. Sparrow, our boss, and then I went and put my proper chef's jacket on. This was the Melampus's last visit to Liverpool. On her next trip, she was trapped in the Suez Canal by the Six-Day War, and was subsequently sold with her cargo and never returned again to Liverpool. Something of a tight fit coming round the corner. And finally alongside. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed this film. It's very old, hence the damage, but it's all there is.